Good morning to media colleagues and those joining us via the stream. It is a pleasure to welcome you here to our weekly press briefing. Truly, it has been an eventful week, and we know that today there's a lot going on, but we want to give you some of the information that you've been asking for. You've sent in some questions, and so we have those answers for you today. I'm going to invite the press secretary now. We have three dynamic speakers who's going to give you a lot of information about some great things that's been happening in the government and pushing forward with what it is that we're trying to do to help those most vulnerable and especially all Bahamians. So I'm going to invite Press Secretary Watson to come now to introduce our first speaker.
Good morning, everybody, and it's good to be back with our regular briefings with you. We're so delighted to have all of you joining with us, my colleagues on Zoom. I know you've been asking. This will be our final week on Zoom. We'll return to face-to-face at our press briefings next week. I know you've been looking forward to it, if only for the final segment, but we'll be back with those next week for you. But today we have a couple of things we want to be able to give across to you and to discuss with you that I believe are crucial and important to the Bahamian people as we continue to the Davis administration to work assiduously to implement aspects of living that will make it better for the Bahamian people. We are doing that. I want to begin, though, with our financial secretary, Mr. Simon Wilson, who talked about the new fiscal strategy report. I think it's important to know where we're headed, how we're going to achieve what we're going to achieve, as our economy will be the basic foundation of anything we're able to do in the administration. And so they've just completed the new fiscal strategy report, and I'm going to invite him now, our financial secretary, to come and report to us on that and take your questions that you may have regarding that. So let's begin with Mr. Simon Wilson, our financial secretary.
Good morning and thank you. So yesterday or last night, the government published the fiscal strategy report for 2021 as well as the medium-term debt strategy report. These are two very important documents, and they outlay the plans for the government going forward into the new fiscal year. The idea behind these reports is to provide the public, as well as our creditors and so forth, an idea of the government's overall strategy. The details will be released during the medium-term budget presentation of the Prime Minister, as well as the annual budget presentation of the Prime Minister. In the past, the practice has been that there was a special debate for these reports. The Fiscal Responsibility Act calls for a debate. This administration believes that a debate is unnecessary. These are very important documents, and they should not be held up by the parliamentary calendar. There has been a delay in publishing reports because of the supplementary budget, as well as the other important business of Parliament, the new COVID rules and so forth. We felt it was important to get these out early. Obviously, we await the comments of the Fiscal Council on those reports. We hope to have those comments in time to inform the Minister of Finance presentation during the mid-year budget, which is scheduled for last Wednesday in February. So this is all a part of transparency, accountability. And I'm open for any questions anyone may have.
Questions from Carl Joaquin.
No questions?
Ask again. Carl Joaquin, any questions? Tyler Simonet?
No, I think Christina Russell, the Tribune, is trying to ask a question.
Let me just get that. Hi, colleagues.
Morning, I was.
Morning. Okay, so what we're going to do is if you have a question, just open your mic and ask the questions. We're not going to worry about the order of a question. Just go ahead and ask a question for each speaker so that you make sure you get your questions in. Don't worry about us calling you in order. Once you have a question, just open your mic and go ahead and feel free to ask your question. Okay, we'll begin with you, Krishna. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Wilson, morning again.
Morning again.
My question is not so much focused on the report, but there was a story that came out this morning about BRIA and some realtors being upset about a foreign company being used in the real property tax process to tally up the bills. Some of them feel as though they're paying more than they should. So the question is, how did this company get the contract, and did it go to tender?
So the engagement with Tyler Technology commenced in 2014. The government at the time engaged KPMG to manage the tender process and select Tyler Technologies. So Tyler Technologies is a company, or they have a branch that specializes in property tax services. And especially in states like Hawaii and so forth, as well as the continental United States. So they have a long history in property tax assessments, which is separate and different from appraisals. So yes, they're in the tender. It's not an appraisal service, but it's a tax assessment service, which is governed by the Real Property Tax Act. No more questions? I'm relieved. Okay, thank you.
I had a question, Mr. Wilson.
Okay, yes, sir.
Sorry, good morning. Notario McKinsey, Eyewitness News. Just wanted to perhaps get your take or insight, and maybe how concerned are you about, I looked at some of the projections, and I know tourism is making a steady rebound, but is there any concern that any gains would sort of be offset by what we're seeing in these sort of, inflationary pressures? I know there are a lot of challenges still because of the pandemic, and I just was wondering if there's any concern that any prolonged, the prolonging of this will, sort of throw off our projections.
Well, obviously, a high inflation environment is obviously a more challenging fiscal environment to operate under. Yes, we are somewhat concerned because of the high inflation environment. However, you have to make your adjustments. So our projections in the fiscal strategy report is over a 5-year period. The key thing in that projection is that we are attempting to increase, and the goal is to increase revenue GDP to 25%, all right, from where it is now currently. So we believe that given the elasticity of our tax base, that the high inflation environment will not impact us achieving that goal. Obviously, inflation would provide more pressure on the expenditure side, because there'll be an increase with inflation, there'll be an increase in demand for increased wages as well as goods and services. So it's something we have to manage. We have been blessed to be in a low inflation environment for an extended period of time, but it's not unusual for governments to operate in an environment where inflation is rampant or high. We just have to trust the global economy will readjust in the shortest possible time. All right.
Good morning, Mr. Wilson. I have one question for you. In the House of Assembly on Wednesday evening, the Minister of Works said that another $31 million is required for the completion of the Andre Rogers Baseball Stadium. I just wanted to verify if that's the case, if that funding will be approved, and also if so, how that can be justified given the financial situation that we are in, which has been labeled as dire by some.
Well, I think you have to go back to the Prime Minister's supplementary budget presentation. The Prime Minister indicated at the time that there were close to $1 billion in unfunded obligations from the government. That $31 million is a part of that. And what the Prime Minister also indicated was that the government was going to honor those obligations in a managed way within the framework of the budget. So I think that's where the answer is to your question. You know, this was not out of the blue, but really the Prime Minister laid the framework of this during the supplementary budget presentation.
But I mean, this is more than double what the stadium was initially projected to cost. Is that still, I know that it's supposed to be revenue generating, but has the studies been done to show that it will be able to generate enough revenue to justify paying more than double what it was initially supposed to cost?
Well, I say this, I don't know if the stadium is supposed to be a profit center for the government of Bahamas. I don't think that was ever the plan. You know, it was designed to have a positive social impact among young persons as well as the wider community. All right, so you can't always measure investments by terms of profitability. This is why you have taxes and so forth to help offset that to make the society better. So it's in the framework, whatever is going to be done is going to be done in the fiscal framework, which was announced in the supplementary budget and which will be fully elaborated during the midterm budget. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, colleagues, and thank you, Financial Secretary Simon Wilson, for that. We want to move on. It's been a very exciting week for the Ministry of Transport and Housing, launching its housing programs and housing initiatives. And you're going to hear, as the minister comes to speak about this, just where the appetite is for housing in this country. It is great. And I think she'll share more about that, as well as the various ventures they're going into, so you know where we're headed with the housing. So I'm going to invite, without further ado, the Minister of Transport and Housing, the Honorable JoBeth Colby-Davis, to address us and then to take your questions.
Good morning. Tuesday, January 25th, 2022 marked a new day in housing development by the government of the Bahamas. After more than 5 years void of a comprehensive housing program for the Bahamian people, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. The mandate of my ministry is to revive and expand the nation's housing programs and inventory, giving Bahamians the best chance and opportunity for home ownership. We understand and know quite well that a home is perhaps the single biggest investment an individual or family will make in their lifetime. And we're also well aware of the red tape of making this possibility a dream and turning it into a reality for many. In fact, by the turnout this week, we had more than 1,000 applicants come out to the Bahamas Mortgage Corp to apply for homes. So it is clear that our people want to be in their own homes, and we will deliver on this. The Ministry of Transport and Housing is committed to diversifying our housing options, creating new modes of homes for Bahamians to meet the growing needs. We are very pleased and satisfied with our public-private partnership program. In fact, we are delighted that a number of private organizations have come on board and partnered with us to ensure that the government's affordable housing construction program is a success. And I am delighted to reaffirm that the Ministry of Transport and Housing Affordable Housing Construction Program is officially on its way to building homes for Bahamians. An historic groundbreaking ceremony was carried out yesterday with our PPP partner, Arawak Homes Limited, at the Pinecrest subdivision site situated to the east of the South Beach Police Station. What's interesting is the variety of options we now have as part of the housing program. Our private sector partners will be developing entire subdivisions, which includes putting in all necessary infrastructure and building a significant amount of homes. This is important as it will remove the financial burden off of the government by reducing the financial risk associated with the development of a subdivision. Additionally, we are pleased to have identified partners who will build houses in areas where the government would have put in all of the infrastructure. They too will be bearing most of the financial risk, as they will also be using their own funds to begin building the homes. And then thirdly, we have reinstated our small contractors program. This initiative is for small contractors who are prepared to build for the government, albeit on a small scale. They will require mobilization and will also be paid in stages. With these 3 construction programs in operation, it will allow us to be able to offer houses to a wide range of applicants whose qualifications vary in levels. Here in New Providence, we can announce that there are a number of locations where construction will begin at the same time. The first will be the 43 lots in an upscale community in South Beach called Pinecrest. Using our PPP initiative, these homes are ranging between $167,000 to $182,000. And when they are completed, they will have partial landscaping and fencing at the backyard. The floor plan designs include 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. The other areas will be sections of the Dignity Garden subdivision, Fire Trail subdivision, and a number of scattered lots throughout the inner city. The construction will be commenced by our small contractors and paid for by the government using mobilization and stage paydowns. The cost of these houses will range between $110,000 and to $160,000. The largest project will take place in Carmichael Village, where there are about 365 lots. The infrastructural work had just about been completed in Phase 1 and will begin shortly in Phase 2. Unfortunately, the issue here is that there is no tie-in point for water and sewer in Phase 1. So we have to complete some work in Phase 2 in order to tie in the connections of Phase 1. And the timing for that will be advised shortly. The good news is that our partners in the PPP program are waiting patiently to get started and building homes in the Carmichael Village area. And I want to take this time to also reaffirm to Family Island residents that we have not forgotten you. Next on our agenda is Abaco. We have not only heard your cries, but we understand that you are still in need of homes. And so we will ensure that you no longer have to suffer and homes will be built on your islands. In conclusion, we are pleased that we are facing the housing issue and demand head on. While the need is greater than we can provide in the immediate term, we are focused on making a significant impact for the greater good of our people, and so we will be working feverishly to realize that goal. Bahamians have said that they want homes for their families, and my government hears you loud and clear. I want to assure you that it is first and foremost on our agenda to build homes. This is why my team is working assiduously to make your dream a reality. We are just getting started, and we are committed to building a significant amount of homes during this first term in office. We understand your need for quality yet affordable housing. We also understand that you've been waiting for quite a while, so we do not intend to procrastinate. The events of this week, namely the open house and the groundbreaking ceremony, are testimony to this and are the first crucial steps to getting you in your home. Indeed, it's a new day for Bahamians to qualify for new homes. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll take our first 2 questions from Kyle Joaquin of Our News.
Hi, good morning, Minister.
Hi, Kyle.
You mentioned that the administration is looking to build a significant number of homes this term. I want to ask, is there a goal, a set number of homes that the Davis administration is looking to build within its 5 years in office?
Well, I set my goal to beat the Minister of Housing who built the most homes to date by record. And I think that number is about 1,600, if I'm correct. But that is former Minister Shane Gibson built the most homes to date. And so whatever his number is, my goal is to beat it. And so that's why we're going across the Family Island, including New Providence, to build as many homes as we can. And the demand is great. So yes, my goal is whatever that number is, I want to build more homes.
Your second question, Kyle.
Yep, I have one more question. After your statement that the technical team advised you to move away from the Prospect Ridge development, former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis, he said that, he questioned politics, and he said he has a list of 30 names of young Bahamians who are pre-approved for that development. Any response from you as the minister now?
Well, we have the list of persons that are pre-approved, and like I stated on yesterday when I was speaking to the press, that those pre-approvals they coincide with actually value. So the value that you approve for by your financial lender. And so that doesn't take them out of the category to being homeowners. That still puts them in the category to being homeowners. It's just that it may change the location of where the property is. And that does not rule out West. We have already invested in having someone begin searching for other places out West. And I had a very fruitful conversation yesterday, and I'm hopeful that we will locate new locations out West for those persons who wish to live out West. But the East is a beautiful place to live as well. Elizabeth is very beautiful to live, so don't get distracted. We are definitely looking for a property out West, and we think we may be close to locking down some areas that'll be better and for us to start right away.
Thank you, Kyle. We go to Notario McKinsey from Eyewitness Digital.
Good morning, Minister. Thank you.
Good morning.
I just wanted to, I guess, maybe my two questions are intertwined, but you mentioned two very key words, quality and affordability. I know in the past, government housing programs have been sort of rife with complaints about shoddy workmanship and so forth. What assurances, what is being done to ensure quality, and also in terms of affordability, is there a cap? I know infrastructure costs are significant, but what is being done to ensure that the costs are in line with something that the average Bahamian can afford?
Speak to quality first. So we have put a paper before cabinet, because what I found when I went to the Department of Housing is there's an extreme shortage with staff that has certain skill set that's needed to be the support that you need as you're carrying out your subdivision projects. And because we're going to do here in New Providence and also in the Family Island, it's important for us to ramp up the manpower in terms of site managers and inspectors. And so we are now going through a process of getting more site managers into the Department of Housing and also more inspectors. And then we're also collaborating with the Ministry of Works to bring some manpower in from the Ministry of Works, who also does inspections for them. So it's a great partnership, and the team is being built now by our acting CHO, Aurel Lafleur, and I think we are doing a great job so that when we start expanding in areas such as Carmichael Village and wherever we find more property out West, we'll have enough persons to spread across New Providence to make sure they're on time inspecting. But on top of that, we're just making sure that the quality is important to us. And so that's why we're going through a detailed process in what we expect from our contractors and ensuring that we have a very tight leasing agreement. One of the other concerns that came out of some of the areas where we built homes in the past was that the process of getting persons approved on time and into the home as soon as the home was completed was quite lengthy. For example, we would have the homes completed and then persons wouldn't be getting their keys to homes until 6 or 8 months later. The problem with that is they're not in the home to actually test things out, open windows, slam doors, move about, turn on fans, light switches and everything, so they can say where an issue is, turn on faucets to say where an issue is while we're still in the warranty. So most of the times they were moving into the homes when when we had ran out of the warranty. And that also cost us a little bit of issues because they would find problems that would have been taken care of right away had we gotten them in the home. So the reason why we started doing the open house and started to re-engage the public and the applicants is so that we can build that relationship with the lenders so that they can get their pre-approvals from now, and as soon as their houses are ready, we can build a list, and as the houses pop out of the ground, persons can get their keys, they can begin moving in the home and see what the issues are, if there are any issues, and have it remedied right away.
Your second question, Natario.
Those two are sort of intertwined, so that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we now move on to Krishna Russell from the Tribune.
Morning, Minister. Only have
Morning.
one question. I think previously it was said that there would be a rent-to-own option for the low-cost housing. Is that still on the table?
Most definitely. We're trying to determine the structure. So I had two examples or two templates that came to me from lenders who would be willing to assist the government in doing that. And I want to make sure that the structure is tight. What happens with rent to own is actually the rentor, the tenant, doesn't have much protection because if they default, you can just take them out of the home because it's not really theirs. And so we're trying to find a structure that'll actually protect both the government, and then also we don't want to be putting people on the streets if they don't come into paying their rent, or if they miss 2 or 3 months of paying their rent. So it has to be a balance in how we design that structure. We're looking at a structure that they presently use in New Zealand, and it's not really a rent to own. It's almost like a escrow ASU sort of account, where they allow persons to pay in to build up their down payment and equity with the government program, and then they enter into their home, and they design it where either they pay in to enter in 18 months or in 3 years. And so those are the options that we're presently discussing. And once we tighten it up and tighten up a structure that the cabinet will be happy with and that I will be happy with to present to the Bahamian people, we will speak more about that. But I will tell you that I've been speaking to quite a number of self-employed persons, especially in the Family Island, and they're really interested in that because it's quite difficult for them to build equity and credit with the bank being self-employed, but they're making good money, and they are able to afford $1,200 rent, and so they would be comfortably able to afford paying a mortgage, but because of their present circumstances, they don't get the mortgage approval from the banks as they would like to. So that program would work well with persons like that as well. So just to tweak it a little bit and make sure I have a structure that's ready to go, and we'll hear more about that.
Thank you so much. Francesca Brown from Eyewitness News.
Good morning, Minister.
Good morning.
After the story aired yesterday, we got some calls about the actual affordability of the home. There were some people that were concerned and saying that $120,000 to $160,000 is not, I guess, affordable when it comes to government housing. Can you kind of give a breakdown of that cost of why the homes will be costing so much?
Yeah, so, well, actually, I will tell you, the Prime Minister wanted just 120. So that's his target. What we were faced with, obviously, we're still in a crisis, a pandemic, and there's an inflation. And so the cost of material and the cost to build has went up and extremely high. And it's important to remember, a lot of these contractors are small contractors. A lot of them haven't had worked for maybe 2-3 years, a number of years. And so we have to make sure that we balance it. Yes, we can put people in their home and it can be affordable to the extent that we still allow these contractors to be able to take something home to their families and not just transfer the funds to purchasing the material and then have nothing left for themselves to take home to their families. And so we have to find a healthy balance. But I will tell you that we have a database right now at the Department of Housing. We have a number of people. We have a number of persons that have qualified, up to over 210,000, and they are quite comfortably ready to move into the homes. And so where there may be some concerns with the cost, we have persons that actually are ready and are qualified for the numbers that we're putting out.
Thank you so much. We take our final question from Tyler Simonet from JCN.
Good morning, Minister.
Morning.
I just want to, is there any concern for this subdivision in regards to flooding? I know that area in South Beach does tend to get a lot of flooding, especially during heavy rains and hurricanes. Has any kind of environmental study been done for that area to assure, potential buyers that they're building their home on a good plot of land?
Yes, we did, and we can advise you, even speaking with the residents, they said that normally it's just little water when in that particular area that settles when it rains, and that's the norm for everywhere in New Providence and probably on other family islands. But it does not have that extreme flooding as persons are concerned about, and most of the neighbors will tell you if you pass by that they don't have those issues. And so I think we're ready to go with that one. We don't have to do much lifting or rising, and we're in a good, strong area that's ready for building and infrastructure close by. So that's going to be a good location.
I'm informed that Keishla Adderley is on. Keishla, if you have a question, you can go now.
Yes, good morning, Minister.
Morning.
Yes, good morning, Minister. I know that earlier this week, an announcement was made about grant funding and other sources of funding to deal with COVID-19 stabilization and response to Hurricane Dorian of 2019. I'm wondering if housing, reconstruction, repairs may be a part of the allocations when those funds are made available?
Well, I remember now, there's a separate body that's dealing with reconstruction. That's the Disaster Reconstruction Authority. So housing is just doing what housing has been normally doing for a number of years. We're building homes for Bahamians, and where we have rental properties, that's where we would be doing the repairs. So our program is just by PPP or by the small contractors getting mobilization and stage pay downs. So we're not commingled, I would say, in the reconstruction. We're building homes because that's our mandate in the Department of Housing. And the Disaster Reconstruction Authority would be the managers of how they reconstruct and repair persons' homes. And so I'm not sure what their plan is for funding, but mine is to do PPP partnerships. That's it? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Minister Colby Davis, for a comprehensive update, and congratulations on a successful launch in housing. I know people are excited that they can now begin applying. Many people have been applying for years, no success with housing, and so we now are excited that we have this initiative in play. Regarding your question, Keisha, we are expecting to have a representative, I think either next week or the week after, from the Disaster Reconstruction Authority to talk about the work that they're doing in the repairs program, and I'm sure they'll give an update on where they're at with that. I want to move on now to our final guest here this morning to talk about what we've been doing in climate change. You know, it's a big initiative for the Davis Cooper administration, and we announced a few weeks ago bringing here into the office of the Prime Minister to join our team a special advisor to the Prime Minister on climate change, Ms. Rochelle Newbold, who was responsible in organizing our venture, the COP26, last year. So she's going to come and talk about some new initiatives that are happening for you. So I'm going to invite Rochelle Newbold to come now, special advisor on climate change, to address us.
Thank you, Clint, and good morning, Bahamas. As Clint said, last year when we went to COP, we came back and we made a lot of pronouncements as to how we were going to move forward with the Bahamas' agenda in regards to that convention. And I'm happy to say that some of the deliverables that we're now focusing on is those related to direct impacts to the involvement of our youth. We talked about their need to be on the global stage and their need to have their voices heard amongst the whole chorus of other voices that's going on. So there are 3 initiatives moving forward. 1, there will be a conference of youth that's going to be held July 6th through the 8th, just days before our 49th anniversary. And this initiative will be a youth conference that will be staged at the University of the Bahamas. We're expecting over 200 youth delegates to come and participate with our youth. This conference is open to students in grades high school, grades 10 to tertiary education. So all the Bahamians that are involved in those age groups, they are invited to register to be a part of this event, as will their peers throughout the world. They would be registering to come to this event. The registration information will be posted on the Prime Minister's office webpage, and so everybody will be able to be a part of that. Keep in mind, there will be a committee that will be formulated to commence the activities associated with this, and not forgetting our students in the Family Islands. The government will be providing provisions for 2 members of each island, high school students, 1 male, 1 female, to represent their island at this conference that's going to be held on New Providence. Our second initiative is the identification of the country's first 2 youth climate ambassadors. I am happy to announce that Mr. Bradley Watson and Miss Maya Delaney are the first 2 to hold this office. They will take seat in February, and their term will run until February of 2023. Through these 2 ambassadors who have made themselves known on the international stage, having participated at COP26 in Scotland, where they held court and they made their presence known and they spoke up for the Bahamas, that they will set the stage for all incoming ambassadors, and they will also establish the platform for the future engagement of all youth as it relates to the climate change conventions. And then the final initiative will be our COP27 Youth Selection Competition. Last year, we talked about the fact that it was very suspicious that during COP26, there seemed to be a missing set of the populace, that being young Black Bahamian students being a part of that COP. So this year, we, working with the Corporate Bahamas, will be sponsoring spots for Bahamian students to participate at COP27, which will be held in Egypt. So I'm glad to see that the schools are opening and the students are back to work. And so therefore, this competition will allow them to make their presentations for those coveted spots. They will be required to engage in an essay competition. They will also have to do a project submission. And because our kids are so savvy with technology, there will also be a social media aspects with regards to the information that would help this committee identify who should gain the spots to go to COP. So these are 3 of the initiatives that are forthcoming within the next few months. I remind everybody that COP will be in November 7th through the 18th in Egypt, and the Conference of the Youth that will be held here, this international event, will be July 6th through the 8th. And it will be staged at the University of the Bahamas, therefore giving the University of Bahamas a highlighted international presence, not only just regionally, but globally, as an institution of higher learning through which a lot of our young students are going to be able to participate and engage and interact with their youths. So we're very excited about this, and we want to particularly encourage our male students to take part in these initiatives, because we also want there to be a strong male presence as we move forward with these items. Any questions?
Thank you so much. We take our first question from Kyle Joaquin.
Hi there, good morning still. Question, you were speaking about COP27, but I just want to know, when the Prime Minister returned from COP26, he said the results would, we'd have to wait to see, because he wanted to assure that this was not a waste of time with heads of countries meeting, and again, there's no resolution, no resolve, no commitments. From your standpoint, were there any agreements signed, anything that we could perhaps look forward to, anything that you can say that COP26 was actually fruitful and beneficial to not just the Bahamas, but the region?
Well, COP26 did not yield as great a fruit as it was hoped, and this you would have seen from global reports that have come out since that meeting. There is some sense of a lackluster approach as to what had happened, but in the behind-the-scenes initiatives in terms of partnership and negotiations, the Bahamas has been making great strides. We have put ourselves out there, and we have made it known to the international community that we will not take this lackluster approach laying down because we are the ones who are going to be the recipients of it. I say that by saying that there are a lot of financial supports on particular project deliveries that are going to be rolled out. COP26 occurred in November, then we had Christmas and New Year's, and so January is the real going back to work and really re-engaging those discussions and those initiatives to try and move things forward. The Bahamas government has been in conversations with countries like Egypt and countries like Israel, the United States, Canada. We have been doing a lot, and in time you will see these things roll out to bear fruit. But we are still in the negotiating phase, and it is not a lost cause. The negotiations of COP are to come to a mutual agreement about how things should move forward, to identify what the gaps are, and also to make a peer-to-peer connection. Our pairs meeting with their pairs to talk about things that can benefit both countries. It is a give and take as we all live on one planet, so we can't necessarily expect that somebody's going to give us something. We have to contribute, and within the next few months, you guys are going to see a lot of things being rolled out from this office. So I tell you to hold us and the Prime Minister to his indication that he will bring that report, because it will be forthcoming. He's going to give those announcements to you.
We go now to Rachel from the Nassau Guardian.
Good morning, Ms. Newbold. I know that we have heard over the past few years from our prime ministers after Dorian during COP26 that we are at particular risk for sea level rise. We are particularly at a high risk for the impacts of climate change in general. We've called on, countries that are more responsible for high emissions to be good neighbors, to do what they can to reduce those emissions. But what are we doing here? Even though we don't contribute that much, what concrete steps are we planning to take to do our part in combating climate change?
Well, from a national perspective, that is a lot of initiatives, small initiatives. There's, like in my last time when I addressed the nation, I made the presentation with the sea level rise and what will happen. There's only so much you can over-engineer, but the majority of the benefit comes from educating Bahamians as to how we should utilize the land in which we have to ensure that we are being the best users, and the land is working in our best and most direct benefits. So issues such as this, bringing our youths to an awareness, bringing our youths in contact with others who are having these discussions, because they are the inheritors of what's going to be left by us. We need to bring everybody to the table in the country so that it is not a one-off discussion. Climate change transcends everything. You see the Ministry of Works is now revising the building codes as to how we build our infrastructure. You see there being more put into the environment as regards to the enhancements of our mangrove systems, the enhancements of our seagrass beds, the enhancements of our coral reefs. The protection of the natural environment is our best gambit in order to help protect our country and to make it more resilient. But it also requires that we, as the inheritors of this great country, also utilize it in the most appropriate way. So you'd see agriculture, the Ministry of Agriculture, looking at adaptation type activities and identifying the proper foods, the more resilient crops, the issues with regards to our water table. All of these things are all about us building localized resilience, because even though we are part of the global market, we have to take care of ourselves. We have to take care of our own. We have to be more prudent and wise about how we are going to move this country into decades and decades of growth. The population numbers will continue to grow, but the land will not. So how are we going to be smart in this? The Minister of Housing just brought up a lot about the housing initiatives. How are we going to address or utilize or modify the way we build our homes? All of these things are not just a top-down approach, but it is a bottom-up approach. It means that you as the general public are part of this discussion as well.
Thank you so much. We now go to Kishla Adderley from ZNS.
Good morning, Ms. Newbold. a lot was made of regional partnerships and strategy in the follow-up to the COP talks. Can you tell me about what you may be strategizing with regional partners to further get the message across and to move in the direction that we would like to see?
So, in order for you to be able to aptly participate in regional and global talks, first and foremost, you must also have your documentation in place. You must have your data. So when you go there, you're not pulling numbers out of the sky. You are speaking in definitive numerical terms. So right now with our regional partners, what we are doing is putting together our national determined contribution, which is a document where we spell out our strategy as to how we are seeking to move forward in health, in agriculture, in our development schemes for the country as it relates to climate change. As we look at the scenarios of 1.5 or 2.0 or 3 degree changes in the atmosphere. So as a region, we all understand that individual islands, we stand better at putting our resources together, at functioning as a block, so that when we get on the global market and we're talking to the G7 or the G20, we have a strong voice rather than a singular country trying to fight its way through the noise of the global market. All of these things means that there is a partnership requirement, and we are working on that. It is expected that these documentations will be completed prior to COP27, because they have to be submitted in advance. Once the Bahamas is found to be in compliance with its global documentation and submission process, then it puts us in a stronger negotiating framework such that we can now make stronger demands, because now our colleagues will not be calling us out because, well, you did not submit this, you have not documented this, you didn't know how much of this is going on in your country. In the past, our documentation and our data was pretty weak. We were making estimates and guesstimates as to what was going on, but the exercises that we have undertaken today, and actually right now at Margaritaville, we're closing up a UNFCCC quality assurance workshop where we're confirming with the stakeholders, private and public sector, on the data sets as it relates to energy, transport, health, waste, all of these items, to finalize this document so that when the Prime Minister goes back to for COP27, we can actually speak in a definitive term. We can quantify how much resources, financial resources and support we need. So all of these things are being advanced so that we can be in a better position at the time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newbold, for giving us an update on that and how the Bahamas is positioning itself to be able to qualify and get international assistance and funding for something that's very important to us and our well-being. I just have a couple of announcements from Prime Minister, and then we'll be able to conclude our press conference on time today. A couple of notes. Obviously, the reopening of school happened this week successfully. This week, public and private schools opened for hybrid learning for the first time in months. In the public sector, there were some challenges, namely at T.A. Thompson and Uriah McPhee. We are working to ensure that the campuses, T.A. Thompson in particular, is up to standard for students in short order, and we'll have an update for that on this next week. T.A. Thompson and Uriah McPhee will remain virtual for now. We know it's not ideal, so we're trying to ensure that it resolved in a speedily fashion. Our first priority is to ensure our students are indeed safe. At Uriah McPhee, we have seen a 19%, I'll say it again, a 19% increase in attendance after the Ministry of Education did a walkabout prior to school reopening. The staff and team there went throughout the community surrounding Uriah McPhee, and as a result of them going in to find out what was going on with those students who were delinquent, who weren't logging on, we've seen a turnaround and an increase in students now attending school either virtually or face-to-face by 19%. So hats off to this students and staff and teachers at Uriah McPhee administration for that exercise, which proved very fruitful. This week has been one of diagnosing students and where there are learning gaps we will adjust. As we said before, this week, as students come back, we've got to find out where they are academically, so we know how to address their needs. And that's what's been happening this week with students who have been returning. We have not had an issue with uniforms, as some people suspected, as most of the students returning to school were in uniforms, and those who could not be in uniform, they were dressed appropriately, which is a good thing. By and large, teachers came out in full force, and it represents a commitment to what they do. And so that's a good thing. We thank our teachers for being a part of that. I want to move on to another area, free testing update. As you know, the government has extended the free COVID-19 testing program to Grand Bahama with the capacity to test up to 200 people per day at the Foster B. Bestina Center at Christ the King in Freeport. Free testing is part of a larger government effort to reduce the impact of the new ultra-transmissible COVID-19 variant. Since starting its testing pilot program in Grand Bahama, 453 people have been tested. 11 of those persons tested positive. In New Providence, since the rollout of the testing pilot program, we've tested 11,878 people, and 696 of them have tested positive. That gives us a grand total of 12,331 people tested in the free testing program. 707 of them are that number presenting positive. The government strongly believes that it is important to know your status, and testing is just one of the tools we're using to ensure that testing is accessible to all Bahamians. We will be starting testing in 8 Mile Rock real soon. Also, the team will be looking in Abaco as well to see how soon we can start testing in Abaco, the free testing program, as well as we move throughout the family of islands with the free testing program. And finally, Prime Minister Davis will be traveling to Grand Bahama and Abaco next week, Monday. He'll spend a half a day in each island to assess the relevant government agencies to determine the way forward, and also to build the government's commitment for its blueprint for change. And so Abaco and Grand Bahama, you can expect to see that visit on Monday from Prime Minister Davis as he now moves toward the family of islands, particularly the Northern Bahamas, where we have officers stationed to meet the staff there, to assess what's happening there, what the challenges are, how he can address those challenges, to meet the people there who are working hard on behalf of the government, and that will take place on Monday. We've got about 2 minutes left, so if you do have any other questions that you would like, I'll give you the opportunity. Jillian, you can lead that for me. If anybody has questions that we can take in the last 2 minutes that we have, I'm happy to do that now.
Kyle, any questions from you?
Yeah, for sure. Good afternoon, Mr. Watson. Want to address the elephant in the room. Obviously, for days, there's been concern over Mr. Davis's silence regarding the change in story. The health minister gave one story, Prime Minister gave another regarding him breaking quarantine protocol. Just want to know from OPM now, what is the story definitively?
Here's what we're going to say on that, because I know this has been lingering, and I think we want to put this to rest, Kyle. Here's what it is. At no time did the Prime Minister, who was vaccinated, boosted, and had just tested negative 3 times in a row, represent a transmission risk to others, nor had he been ordered, let me get clear, nor had he been ordered into quarantine. He chose to quarantine. There's really nothing more to be said on this issue. Those are the facts. And the Bahamian people have not asked us to move forward with it. We've given this facts, and for the Bahamian people's sake, we want to move on and focus on what we are doing with the fight against COVID, how we are moving forward in the healthcare system and in the hospitals to create new hospitals here in the capital. There's so much more work that we are doing. We want the Bahamian people to highlight. Those are the facts. Those are the particular, and we want to move on from this. The Bahamian people want us to move on from this.
Your final question, Kyle.
Yeah, just a follow-up to that. There have been calls, well, one for his resignation and another for him to pay a fine. Will the Prime Minister be paying a fine for this?
You can only pay a fine if you've been charged with something. He's not been charged with anything.
Thank you. We now move on to Notario. You can ask your first question.
I'm good, Jillian, thanks.
Okay. Krishna Russell from the Tribune.
Morning. First question. I know it was said that the Bahamas spent up to $1 million for the Dubai trip. Any indication yet how much of that $1 million was spent?
No, that entire trip is being held by the Ministry of Tourism and Youth, Sports and Culture. I would ask you to direct your conversations or your questions to them regarding that. The Office of Prime Minister, we have no purview over that.
Okay, and second question. Since the Prime Minister was one of the last people to see Mr. Griffin before his death, did he have to be questioned by police or was he involved in the investigation?
I'm not aware of anything of the sort on that, Christian. I'm sorry.
Okay, we now go to Francesca Brown.
Hi, Sandy.
Oh, we can go to Tyler Simonet.
Thanks, Sandy. Sandy, you heard something?
No, Tyler.
No. I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Sandy. Tyler?
Good, well, afternoon now. I only have one question. We've been getting a few complaints about the vaccine site in regards to people trying to sign up for their boosters. They're saying that the option isn't coming up. Has the OPM gotten any complaints about this, and is it being worked on?
We haven't. We just heard you say that. We didn't know. They're listening, and so we'll go ahead and address that issue and see what's happening with that right away. Thank you for letting us know about that.
Keishla Everly from ZNS.
Hi, Keishla.
I'm good, thank you.
Oh, she's good. Okay.
Okay, and our final person is
Rachel? Hi, Rachel.
Good morning, Mr. Watson.
Hi.
We saw this week yet another event that brought to the forefront the subject of gender-based violence. Of course, we've had a string of incidents in recent months that raised that national conversation. I know that the Minister of State for Social Services spoke to it a little bit this week, but is this something that's more of a national priority at this point for the government? And if so, what are you all looking at to help address this issue? Will more resources be provided to the issue?
Thanks, Rachel. The well-being of our people is always a national priority and will always be a national priority in the Davis Cooper administration. Conversations are beginning. Today the Ministry of Social Services is in a workshop with its leaders and its team players to be able to make sure people are armed with the information, not only the information, but how to address these issues. If you've heard reports before, you've heard people talk about, oh, I've reported it, no one's listened. I've reported it, but yet I still don't feel safe. And you hear people talk about the fact that even though I'm in this relationship, I want to get out, but where do I go? Where do I stay? These are real issues and real concerns. The government is going to advance further discussions on this in a national way soon. You'll hear more about it. But we've directed all of our agencies that deal with this to talk, to dialogue, and to come up with tangible solutions. The word tangible meaning not just textbook solutions, solutions that work based on our economy, based on our society, based on our demographics, that work for our people, because our important priority is to keep our people safe. We're going to talk more about this once Prime Minister and Cabinet and other agencies had the opportunity to meet and to discuss on it, but it is a national priority. The safety of our people, the security of our people is always a national priority, and we will advance more on this shortly. Thank you, Rachel, for that.
Your final question, Rachel?
Yeah, just one more question. I kind of already raised the issue with Mr. Wilson earlier, but it was revealed in the House of Assembly on Wednesday evening that this national baseball stadium is expected to cost an additional $31 million. So that brings the total cost to roughly $60 million, more than double than what it was initially supposed to cost. We've heard, since the start of the COVID pandemic, even before then, that we've been in dire financial circumstances as a country. We've seen numerous issues raised in the past week over a lack of resources in the instance of the response to phone calls from Heavenly Tervaeus's family leading up to her death. How is the government justifying investing this much money into a baseball stadium? Have any studies been conducted to show that it will still be a worthwhile financial investment? I mean, how how are we justifying this at this point?
The government is going to talk more about this, right? But this is a classic example, Rachel, of having to deal with one issue, but still being able to govern and provide opportunities for Bahamian people. What is happening socially right now in our country is unfortunate and it's unacceptable. And while we're addressing that and turning resources to that, we still have to continue to build the infrastructure in place for those Bahamians who need access to be able to succeed on the level of sports. We cannot stop investing in sports because we're having issues socially. Matter of fact, the investment in sports helped to curtail a lot of what's happening socially in the country. So it's almost like you have to walk and chew gum together. While we're addressing and finding critical resources for those issues that are at the forefront of us, that are burning, we've got to continue to invest in infrastructure. We've got to continue to invest in sporting programs for our athletes because you want to continue to excel on the international market. You want to continue to develop sports. There's so many Bahamians who need this outlet. And so this is something that has already begun. If we don't do anything to bring it to fruition and completion, the entire investment dies. We can't allow that to happen. We've got to bring it to completion. And while it may not have been something that we intended to have to invest in, we've got to find the means, ways, and resources to be able to do so. The Davis administration is up to the challenge of being able to make sure that while we are dealing with the crucial issues, the social issues, and finding funding for them, we can still continue with the programs that are important to develop Bahamians and provide alternatives for them in sports, in the arts, the performing arts. You're going to hear us talk about that coming in the future. The orange economy, all of these things we have to continue to put in place that we build a better nation while we are still solving the crises of today and the headlines of the day and dealing with the issues of the day. We've got to still continue to build a nation. And that's what good governance is really all about, being able to handle the crisis, but being able to still plan futuristically for your country. And the Davis Cooper administration is able to do that. And we're going to show you how it's done. All right. Thank you, colleagues, for another week. We look forward to seeing you face to face next week again. Thank you for being a part of this. This ends our press briefing. Thank you all who've joined in. Good afternoon, everyone.